Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Blizzard Watch podcast. This is that podcast that we do every so often, talking about Blizzard and its games and other games from other companies, but mostly Blizzard and its games. I'm Matt. I'm the host. With me this week are, of course, my fantastic co-hosts, Joe Perez and Liz Harper. And I'm sorry, I guess we're pretty much done. There's nothing to talk about. So when you'll see you next week, thank you. No, I'm kidding. A lot happened. Actually, the past week, some stuff has been happening, but this week we had a pretty big news jump. We finally have an announcement for the name of the next World of Warcraft expansion. Is as many people speculated when they found out that Blizzard had registered this trademark. It is World of Warcraft Dragonflight. That is the name of the next expansion, and it's entirely about kobolds. Again,
I mean, technically, you're not necessarily 100% wrong.
We don't know. I mean, there could be some kobolds. We haven't seen anything yet. We do know
the Dracthyr are kind of like really large kobolds.
Yeah, but regardless, it is a dragon themed expansion. There's a lot to talk about. I want to try to make sure we hit everything, but before we jump into it, we're going to do a real quick thing where I say, hey, guys, what have you been up to? So, Joe, what have you been up to?
Survival. And that's about all that's been taking up my current week.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. Liz?
Wow, I'm planning on going on a road trip with my mother, which has been a nightmare of planning.
Yeah. Well, jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
Road trips.
It's good. It's like going places and doing things, and it's like, it's work.
Yeah. But now that we've gone through that, we've pretended that we have any idea what we're doing in our lives. That's great. Let's get into this fantasy world where we can, talk with dragons, because there's going to be a lot of that going on in this next expansion. It's like I really, there is so much to talk about. Let's talk about the Dracthyr first. The Dracthyr is a new thing. It's the playable race that we're getting with this expansion.
One of potentially two.
Yeah, one of potentially two. But the other thing is, as it's a new race and it's a new class at the same time, because unlike other classes that are, playable by multiple races, and unlike other races that can play multiple classes, a Dracthyr can only play the Dracthyr Evoker class.
Well, it's like Demon Hunters, right?
Well, even more so, because Demon Hunters, only two races can be Demon Hunters, but Demon Hunters are just one of many classes for those two races.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is if you're a Dracthyr, you're an Evoker. If you're an Evoker, you're a Dracthyr. They come together. I think that's fascinating. I am a little bummed out that WoW's version of Dragonborn will not have warriors, because now I can't have a Dragonborn warrior in D&D in WoW. But I do get that that's what they're doing. My first reaction on this so far is it looks pretty cool. Liz, what did you think? You were the one who pointed out the customization options to me. So what do you think of the Dracthyr so far?
I think they're amazing, and I'm never going to play anything else. That's my current mindset. It may change a little when I find out what the class actually does, or have to think about how I've been playing my current Blood Elf Paladin for the past 15, 16 years. So I might change my mind there. But no, it's just the racial models look really amazing. They have great animations. Their all of their abilities have really fun animations. It just looks like
there's Black Dragon versions of them.
It looks really exciting. So, I mean, it's hard not to be hyped when you have a new race and a new class, something like this coming. I mean, it's basically a hero class, except it's like a super specialized hero class. And I mean, when they announce something like this, of course you're going to get excited, and I am excited. I am the target audience for anything about dragons.
Here's a question, because I was kind of in and out of consciousness when the announcement was going on. Did they announce if it's going to be a traditional class, like it's going to have because I know it's a ranged DPS and healer capable class. Did they say if it's going to be something where we have to switch like we do with current hybrids? Or are they doing what I've finally been asking for the last 2 decades of having a true pure hybrid class with one spec?
They have two specs.
Okay.
They have two specs. They're changing talents and stuff, so we'll talk about that in a bit. That will affect how they play. But, I think Corey went and looked at them and was saying that basically they have two dragon, I want to say Dragonflight aspects, for lack of a better word. Their healing thing is based around
Emerald Dream and Time.
Emerald Dream and Time, whereas their DPS is basically Life and Arcane. It's the blue and red Dragonflights. And he noticed there's no role for the black Dragonflight in their abilities as yet. They have two specializations in this class, and they don't have like a tanking spec, which is interesting. And quite frankly, we probably have enough tanks at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we had enough healers, but here we are. Also, this is the first new range class they've ever added to the game, by the way.
Well, I don't think they were calling it a ranged class. They were talking it like a middle range class.
No, yeah, I remember that much. They did say that it was ranged and not melee.
But they didn't. They talked about it like it was short range. Maybe like this is some sort of middle, like not as far out as the hunters, not as close in as the melee, but it talked about it being some kind of middle range spec.
Yeah, they specifically,
which is interesting.
That.
Yeah.
We don't know what it's going to... We know very little about what this is going to play like. They showed, like, one thing they showed was the Dracthyr literally goes up in the air and deep breaths over a target, like Onyxia. Yeah. That's like an actual thing they do. So we're not sure how it's going to play out. But so far, it does look really cool. And like I said, I wanted Dragonborn in WoW for years. It's basically Dragonborn, but cooler because they have wings. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think this is great. I would like them to also make the Automa from the end of Shadowlands playable, because they're also cool, and then I'd have my Warforged, and that would be great. Just steal everything from D&D. I don't care.
I mean, all I know is there's a rumor going around that I might be able to finally get what I asked for all like those years ago that you told me no, Matt. That's all I heard. The rumors of playable Tuskar are also there.
Oh yeah, the Tuskar. let's move into that. We'll talk. One of the things we could do is we should talk about where this is set. This is. I feel weird even saying it, talking about it, but the place is set in the Dragon Isles. Mm-hmm. That's where we're going. I don't think anybody is surprised. This was the most obvious move they could have made, but I think it is a good move. They should have made the most obvious move here.
Agreed. They've been building up for this since Pandaria, so it's been a while. It's been a while coming.
And at the end of Battle for Azeroth, they were dropping hints about the Dragon Isles fast and loose. I mean, Wrathion was talking about the place constantly. So, in fact, I think a lot of people expected the Dragon Isles instead of Shadowlands.
Mm-hmm.
I think quite a few people were surprised where we're going. Where? That's not the Dragon Isles. So yeah, this was an obvious move, but I think it was the right move to make at this point. I think a lot of players are kind of done with going to other dimensions for a bit. I like the Shadowlands. I thought Shadowlands was extremely well done, but I know some players were very confused about the whole thing. Much like when we did Warlords, and some players were very confused about the whole thing. When we go to another dimension, it often confuses people. I don't think that like TBC had that problem, but Outland is so familiar, people knew it. They knew what it was. Even though it was an alien landscape and they'd never been there before, they grasped it pretty quickly. This is where the orcs are from. They blew it up. It looks like this now. Whereas Warlords, we're going back in time? Not really, but sort of, to an alternate past. Okay. And Shadowlands very, very much. People knew we were going to Land of Death, but they were not expecting what we got. So I think that going back to Azeroth, going to the Dragon Isles, which is a place we've been hearing about, the Dragon Isles almost made it into Classic.
Yes,
like they were working on them.
They were on the original pre-release maps, like the original concept art, right?
Yeah, they were not just concept art. They were actually physically present on the world map for some of the beta. Like
that's right. Yeah,
they were actually physically there. And
sorry, it's been 20 years. It's hard to remember.
Oh yeah, no, we're all ancient. Time grinds us into the ground. No, but Liz, do you want to talk about the Dragon Isles, or do you want me to do it?
Y'all are going to need to talk about the Dragon Isles. Y'all are the lore people. I only know something about an island, and maybe there are dragons, and there was a stone dude who's now my new favorite character.
Yeah. The thing is that some of the lore is literally brand new from that announcement trailer. So like, it is.
I've watched the announcement trailer once, so that is my level of knowledge about the Dragon Isles.
Basically, the Dragon Isles are where dragons come from. It's before the Sundering, it was the place where the dragons lived. They had their own kingdom on these islands. I'm not sure where they were,
and presumably the facility that empowered them as well.
Yeah. Well, we know that just because, again, the announcement trailer has a cinematic, spiffy cinematic. Go watch it.
Oh yeah.
By the
But
way, I'm with Lipodermic. That Stone Boy, his name is Stony Danza now, and I will accept nothing else.
Stony Danza, hold me closer, Stony Danza. Sorry, that's a reference to a mishearing of an Elton John song.
I still sing it like that every time. Anyway,
But the whole thing, the basic premise of this was that the original homeland of the dragons, the Dragon Isles, is a place that was during the Sundering they had to abandon it because the magical level of the world had been completely changed by the Sundering. The ley lines had shifted and magic was being lost to the Dragon Isles. So in order to try and repair Azeroth as the dragon aspects, they went forth into the world and left behind the Dragon Isles with just these few watchers to like guard over the place and kind of a suspended animation deal. And the watchers would essentially wake up when the magical level of the island was high enough again, which nobody knew if that would ever happen, but they were hoping it would. So the watchers would stay there and keep it in the fortress. I think it's called Tierholm or Tierguard or something. The tower was made by Tyr, the Titan Watcher, and when it got back to a place where it could be inhabited again, the Watchers would activate the tower, and the dragons would know to come back.
And it's Tears Hold, by the way.
Tears Hold, thank you. And the cinematic is basically the story of 10,000 years after they left. This one Titan Watcher is left. He wakes up. He senses the magic is to the point where the dragons could live there again, and so he tries to go get his other watchers to wake up, but they're all like destroyed by something. You see one, his face is melted off when he climbs into the tower and goes up to the throne that one of them, the chief of them was sitting on. That guy's smashed into pieces. So he's like, all right, I got to make this thing work again. So he walks over and tries to turn on the device, and it doesn't work. So he closes his eyes for a second, and then, I don't know, I feel like everybody feels pretty much the same way. We're all like, oh, and then he like opens his eyes with determination. And he starts trying to climb the tower, and you're like, oh, go on, little stone guy, who's actually like 30 feet tall. And so he climbs up the thing and physically forces it to activate. And of course, because it is a magical device, it explodes, and he gets knocked off. And you think, oh no, I'm going to watch Stony Guy get crushed. And just as he's about to hit the ground, Alexstrasza comes out of nowhere and makes the save. And that's because the dragons heard the thing go off, and they're like, yay, we can go home. And I don't know about you guys, but the end of Cataclysm always kind of sat wrong with the idea that the reward for the dragon aspects for having spent, thousands upon thousands of years of their lives guarding the world and trying to safeguard it is that now they lose everything and become they don't have a future anymore. It's the age of mortals, and dragons are done. So
we're going to talk about it on Lore Watch. I'm confident, but like, it also gave me some vibes of like, maybe we're going to get our dragon redemption story here that I know you and I have been talking about, where like, restoring the aspects now that the device is empowered again, right? Like, now that it's turned back on, does this mean that we can now legitimately have aspects again and give them something back to make them whole again?
Or even just, I don't even care if they get to be aspects. That doesn't matter to me, but I care if they have a future.
Yeah, agreed.
Like that idea that the mortals will be handling the world. That's fine. I don't mind if dragons are now essentially mortal beings that eventually age and die, but let them have kids. Let them have their eggs.
Now they have a place where they can have clutches again, right?
Yeah. The last thing Alexstrasza did before the end of Cataclysm, like the last thing she did in lore, was lose her entire like clutch. Like Deathwing got his hands on all of them except the ones that her last consort blew up. So she basically, and then her son dies. So she loses everything. I would like it if she finally, and then her sister died in Legion. So, it's been a rough road for Alexstrasza. I would like it if we could have the expansion that is nicer to Alexstrasza, because she's been through a lot. At this point, the only two, like of the original 5 aspects, the only 2 left are Alexstrasza and Nosdormu. And I'm sorry, Nosdormu is not a talkative fellow. This is not the guy you go to if you're having emotional issues. You do not go to talk to Nosdormu. He'll just start talking to you about timelines. It's like, okay, this is the one true timeline. That's great. I feel bad about our sister dying, man. Could you, like, for 5 minutes here, turn on the warmth? You're voiced by Martin Sheen. I know he can do it. So yeah, it has been. But going back to the Dragon Isles, I'm kind of nerding out here. I think we are, because just generally Joe and I are because as Liz pointed out, we are the lore nerds. But we've never gotten to actually go to this place in all this time. World of Warcraft, as they pointed out today on their reveal, it's 18 years old, and we have never been here. It's just been out of reach. We know it exists, but we never got to see it or go there.
Yep.
It was almost going to be in the game, and then they didn't end up being in the game. And now, 18 years later, we're finally going there. And I'm super excited for that. I'm excited for it partially because, much like Pandaria, this is a place that's been isolated for 10,000 years. This is a place we have not been to in that time. The beings that are there have developed alone, in isolation, for all this time. And we're finally going to see how they developed. We're going to see, like, Joe, we'll move to this for you. This is for you. One of the things they talked about is that in the first zone that we're going to go to, and I had a list of the zone names, but I don't have it to hand because life is insane right now. But one of the races we're going to run into first are Tuskar.
Yep.
And they're an offshoot of the Tuskar we know from Northrend, but they're the Tuskar. That's who they are, and we're going to get female models, so there will be male and female models and kid models.
Mm-hmm.
And kid Tuskar are ridiculously cute. Like, that is just, no, that should not have happened. There's no way we're going to get anything done. We're just going to be like trying to make Tuskar kids our pets, and no, they are people's children. You cannot just take them and make them your squire. I don't care what World of Warcraft has trained you to think. You cannot just abduct Tuskar pell-mell willy-nilly. You can't do it. But I know players. I know World of Warcraft players. It will happen.
Yeah.
Children's Week is actually starting very soon, so we can go on our child abduction rampage of the year.
Hopefully the Tuskar will be in. But yeah, that they're adorable, and it is as Joe's pointed out. A lot of the stuff is there for playable Tuskar. The fact that they're going to have male and female models, which is, I'm hoping in the future, WoW doesn't just keep doing that thing where they make just male models unless it's
the playable race. Yeah.
Someone reminds them that women exist. I feel like at this point we should be aware that you could have multiple genders of, it doesn't have to just be male and female either. But I also
would have been perfectly fine with Tuskar remaining androgynous, like, throughout the entirety of their existence. Like, I would have been perfectly A-okay with that.
They kind of still are, because the female Tuskar model isn't like, it's still just a Tuskar. It's not trying to not look like a walrus person. It still is. It even has tusks, which female walruses do not have. So the Tuskar are not 100%, walrusy. They are going along that thing. The female Tuskar model doesn't, like, it's not trying to vamp itself out on you. It's not hypersexualized. It's just a Tuskar. It's a little shorter. That's basically it. That they're still wearing, like, parkas and stuff because it's cold. They live in frozen places. So I'm super excited for the Tuskar. I was also excited that the Centaur and Nulls are coming back.
Yes.
And that they're both different because they've lived in this dragon place for like 10,000 years. Mm-hmm. They have different cultures and so forth. That's really cool. But the thing that got me the most excited, and Liz knows this because she had to, like, look at the things I was saying in chat, and Anna and I were kind of going nuts. They're putting not playable. Sorry, I can't promise you that. I shouldn't promise you that. They're putting ducks into World of Warcraft.
Yes, they're putting ducks into WoW.
They have not had ducks ever. You're thinking ducks? That's not new, is it? Go back and look for a duck. You will not find one. There are no ducks in World of Warcraft until now.
Unless you count, like, the toys in Stormwind.
Yeah, but those are toys. Those are not actual ducks.
I'm aware.
These are ducks. These are real, live, living ducks. Your hunter and or your pet collectors, get ready. Ducks. And I think that the best joke of all time was when Anna wrote and actually put into the post I wrote about this, where she was like, finally ducking autocorrect works. It makes sense. Seriously though, this is kind of a joke, but at the same time, it is something that they've never had before. And they now feel confident they can animate them properly, and we're going to have ducks. There's a lot of stuff to this. We know very little about the Dragon Isles, so I can only tell you that we're going to the Dragon Isles. The story of the Dragon Isles is basically that for the past 10,000 years, the dragons have been gone. The magic has been very subsided, and now that the magic is coming back, possibly due to what happened in Shadowlands. Like, I'm not 100% sure on why suddenly the Dragon Isles have got their magic back, but there's a big theme of, like, Azeroth is healing in this expansion, and so I get the sense that possibly having survived the events of Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands, that the world is slowly recovering, and that's a big part of the whole thing. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, you first.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry. I was thinking about this like a little bit today in between my fever dreams. I'm wondering if it has something to do that with Northrend no longer having the ley lines pulled to it, because that was a huge thing in Wrath, right? That was what the Blue Dragonflight was doing, was trying to wrest the ley lines away from the rest of the world and run them through the Nexus again. But that's been stopped. Now Icecrown Citadel, which was very clearly tapping into Azerite / ley lines / the life essence of Azeroth to funnel that life force back through to the Shadowlands as part of its original design, that's been eliminated at the end of Shadowlands once we're done with that. So maybe it's just because there's nothing wresting control anymore, so everything is sort of drifting back to where it needs to be. Like,
yeah, that's certainly possible.
At least that's my thoughts on it. Sorry, Liz, go ahead.
So, okay. You know, we should do just a whole podcast where it's like you two who know everything about lore and me, an idiot, just like have these conversations, which is what we're about to do right here. Because isn't there still a giant sword stuck through the middle of Azeroth? Can we really sit here and say, oh, nature is healing, everything is getting better? Isn't there still a giant sword?
Well, yeah, that there is still a giant sword, and that's something I'm really interested to see what they do with in this expansion. Yeah, absolutely.
Technically a giant sword made out of Titan flesh, so who knows? Well, no, because Titans manifest their weapons, right? Like we saw that. We saw Sargeras summon the weapon, which we can assume is some form of his power or aspect of himself being like born through to it. So yeah, maybe that is part of it. Maybe it's more okay than we assume it is. That probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but like, if the wounds elsewhere are being brought under control, if the Cenarian Enclave and the Earthen Ring and all of the healing organizations have been doing what they were supposed to be doing and getting back to it while the rest of us are in Shadowlands, which we can assume maybe that they've been doing, maybe that helped fix that too. And going back to Pandaria, we've seen how quickly a group of healers can restore life to a giant object or heal a giant gaping wound, because we literally do it to a giant world turtle. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe there is something to Azeroth is healing. Maybe we're actually making an impact. Yeah, the sword is a thing, but maybe it's not as big of a thing as we're making it out to be anymore. Now that it's not really like it's not pumping venom into the world anymore.
Yeah, we did sacrifice our artifacts back in Legion to at least make it so the thing wasn't directly poisoning the planet anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it just seems like we got to the end of the Legion and we did the artifact sacrificing thing, and then we just have kind of ignored it and hoped for it would go away. You know, it's like we haven't done anything. We haven't even looked at this storyline, and it feels like a maybe significant storyline that we should maybe possibly be thinking about, and we aren't.
Yeah, I do think I would be interested to see if that's connected to what's going on in this expansion, because we know like a big theme of it seems to be renewal and regeneration, and it would be interesting, you know, perhaps the sword has, you know, it's become like the equivalent of, you know, that piece of shrapnel that people carry around inside them, that it's there and it exists, but it doesn't necessarily get removed. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with that. That is interesting. But we should it's just so much to talk about here. I keep like I don't want to like move away from the lore too much, but we are going to do a lore watch, and we are going to be talking about this, I think.
Oh yeah.
So for now I'm going to talk about some of the new stuff we know that's not a new class or anything like that. They're bringing in something really interesting that I'm not sure how it's going to go. The dragon riding aspect. That's essentially, I almost want to call it Flight version 2.0.
Kinda, yeah.
Because it seems like they're taking the basic concept of flying from World of Warcraft, and they're doing another expansion where that kind of stuff is part of the game from day one, but now they're also making it more, it's more like a mini game where you kind of like, you learn how to do flight on these backs of these dragons. They call it dragon riding. And there's like new moves that you do with it. And it's tied into the story, and you have this dragon mount that essentially you can customize.
Yep.
Either one of you want to talk about this? Because I've been talking a while, and we do want to have one of you two
Liz.
talk from time to time.
I frankly don't understand it, except I get to ride a dragon, but I already get to ride dragons, so I'm not entirely sure. I haven't paid a lot of attention to this system. I'm sorry. Someone else is going to have to explain it.
Yeah, so it strikes me as something similar to how Flight was handled in Guild Wars 2 for a while, with like a gliding skill-based system, which is fine. Like, I think that's fine. I think it's really cool that you're going to get to customize your mounts. You're going to get to make those choices. You're going to get to customize it, and then you get to have a mini game in it. I think it's interesting to I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, and I apologize. We are getting it from the beginning, but instead of just being go everywhere, it's like you have to work at it, but you have to work at it in a way that also feels rewarding. That is like one of those things where it's like Flight 2.0 is not too far off. It's how do we give players this thing they want, Flight, while also making it rewarding as a system that is something that they can really dive into, which is all the special moves, all the customization that you can earn for it, and everything else.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like if you took the stuff I liked about Azerite and put that into this system and made it not tied to player power at all. So you can still have borrowed power without having borrowed power. You're not borrowing any power. You're just, instead of like all or nothing with Flight, you get like, okay, now I've got this dragon. Now we know how to do this. But unfortunately, to get to this place, we have to learn more and do better stuff so that our skill gets high enough so that we can go to the next place. It's like gating, but gating where you can progress through it as opposed to just, no, you're higher level now, you can go there.
Yeah, agreed.
So it has the feeling of a system, and it is interesting. Like they have challenges all over the Dragon Isles supposedly to unlock even more customization options, so I can transmog my mount if I go do these challenges. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, people?
Somebody referred to it, I saw somebody referring to it as swinging in Spider-Man, and I'm A-okay with that. So as far as video games go, as far as locomotion goes, I will honestly say that I think Spider-Man for the PS4/PS5 has the absolute best, most rewarding traversal systems because you're freaking Spider-Man. This is basically what I would imagine, and Liz, you made this comparison, and I thought the same thing when you made it in staff chat. This reminds me of dragon riding from Dragonlance. Like a lot of this setup reminds me of like the classic fantasy from like Pern, right? Like that's what it reminds me of.
They have even used the name of a Pern book, so it's like, yeah.
But this reminds me a lot of how it was described in those books, where it's the rider and the dragon feeling each other out, growing more confident in the skills of each other to become a better unit in the air. And that's what this system feels like to me. It feels like that's how they're presenting it. And I'm A-okay with this. Like, I think that's really, really cool. And I think that's neat. I think that's giving you a classic fantasy idea and trying to present it in a way that I think we've all been wanting for, I don't want to say we've all been wanting, but I think some of us have been wanting for a while. I think it's a really cool system. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, they did not say whether or not this is going to replace regular Flight. They just mentioned this as a system, right? They haven't said whether or not we're going to be able to fly normally.
I think at first you will just be doing dragon riding.
Right.
I think that's what they said. Like
I don't think they said anything.
Yeah, they didn't address. They didn't say you will never fly your normal mounts again. They just said that the dragon riding thing is the big part of the expansion. Okay. So I think that you start off doing dragon riding, and then eventually you'll probably unlock mounts. I don't know, but this is meant to be the system, at least leveling through the zones.
Okay.
So that's all we know. I'm actually holding off on a discussion of something because it touches on something that Liz, Joe, and I talked about before. So I want it to be the last Dragonflight discussion we have on this particular episode. So I'm going to move on to the UI updates. This one is not a huge deal, but it is interesting.
I think it is actually a huge deal.
It feels like a huge deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
They both play healers. That's how you know.
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. I'll shut up in a minute and let Liz talk. But like the thing that struck me about it is the default, like not even the default, but how they were showing like the customization of the UIs. This is how I know the person who was working on this is a healer, because it looks exactly like my setup has for the last 2 decades with mods that I've had to get it that way. So thank you. I see you. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to not having to use bartender anymore. But go ahead, Liz.
I mean, the thing about a user interface, and I can, speaking as I do from the perspective of a healer, is healers are all like, a healer doesn't have a rotation. You are responding to what's in front of you at any given time. And you may have some ideas of what, okay, if this happens, I cast this. If this happens, I'm going to cast this. If the rogue goes and stands in the fire, I have to do this, like catastrophes unfold in front of you and you must respond appropriately. And that means it's really important to have the appropriate information in front of your face, but only the appropriate information. As a healer, there's a lot of stuff I just don't care that much about. But when it comes to people's health bars and it comes to debuffs and things like that, I need to know what's going on. I need to know where people are. I need to know what their health is. And so, yeah, I usually pare down my UE as much as I can to where I just have my health bars and I just have the essential information. And the base UE, you can't do that. There's just tons of crap all over the place where it's trying to feed you all of this information. And my brain is like, okay, I don't need 90% of this information. I need to be able to focus on the things that are important for me. And that means I'm running like 27 different add-ons to tweak sizes on things, or hide things, or move things, or display things in simpler ways, or remove that griffin art, which is alongside the button bars, that is gigantic. And it takes a lot of add-ons to do things like this when your only goal is to say, I only want to see the information that's important to me, and I don't want to see anything that's not important to me. That doesn't sound like a big ask, but it's a pretty big ask.
It is. And like I just loaded my add-on thing to see how many add-ons I have installed now. I'm down to 31. This is me paring it down. I'm down to 31 to do all the things Liz just said.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that they made the point. The designers that were talking were the lead UI designer, Laura Sardana, I think that's her name, and the senior UI designer was, I want to say Crash Bandicoot, but hold on, I'm going to go look it up. Crash Reed, sorry. I'm sorry, man, your name was Crash, and I went to Bandicoot. But they were talking about, first off, this is the first true UI redesign they've ever done. The game has been out since 2004, and it hasn't had a UI redesign in all that time.
Yep.
So think about that. Secondly, their goal isn't to completely revamp the wheel here. They don't want people who like the UI to feel like they have to suddenly change it all around, but they do want people like you guys are talking about. They want people to be able to move things so they can have them wherever they want them to be on the screen. And the other thing is that they're deliberately enlarging things like the minimap and health bars, because people are using bigger monitors now than they were in 2004. They go with higher resolution. Sometimes people play on multiple monitors, for that matter.
I mean, I have a 39-inch curved monitor.
They want people to be able to put things wherever they feel will be useful to them. So everything you guys were just talking about, but they also wanted to do an art redesign. Those griffins you guys mentioned, some people really like them, but they're redesigning them to work with the newer UI. They wanted to be like, still have the iconic look, but to have them be modular and part of this, you put them where you want to have them, sort of thing. And also, they're changing. If you play Horde, you will now be able to use wyverns instead of griffins.
Mm-hmm.
Because Horde have been playing this whole time with griffins, which doesn't make any sense. That's a redesign thing they're doing. Also, you're going to have custom UI. The UI will customize for each spec, so that when you change specs, the UI will change with you.
So you can do different setups and have it travel with you.
Yeah, so you can have your healing set up, and you could have I also like to go farming for transmog on my paladin. So I have a DPS / tank spec for my paladin, and that paladin that'll switch when I switch to go do it. That sort of thing. That's pretty cool in my opinion.
That is really interesting because frankly, I set up a UE for healing, and then anything else I'm doing, it just has to work with that.
I mean, that's kind of what I do too.
Yeah, because changing it, swapping it between characters, or swapping it between specs is a lot of work and a lot of setup that you may have to do over when your settings are corrupted or
As
when
long
your
as
add-ons
That's
stop
the
working,
real reason I think this is a great change. Is it's not necessarily even just because you want to have your own UI that gives you the information you need, but because you won't have to redo it every single time they come up with a new patch.
That's
Yep.
it.
That's
right
what
there.
drove me
right
away
there.
from my UIs.
Well, especially now that they're killing. I hate to say this is a totally side rant, but now that like the whole CurseForge API is going away and killing certain add-on auto updaters like Azure, where they're going to be unusable, and I actually don't even know if that time has come yet. I haven't had an update come through in Azure in a while, but I also don't know if it's the end of the expansion or just in the add-on update lull. But I'm too lazy to go through and check if all 31 of my add-ons have an update. So like if I can reduce that and not have to freaking worry about updating 31 freaking add-ons every single time that they make an update to the game, that's just great. Like I'm here for it. I am here for it.
Yeah, that is the thing that to me is the most inspirational about this. In that it will, they made a point that not every player wants to use this many add-ons. That it is a lot of add-ons. Not everyone does that, and people who don't do that are using the same UI that they had in 2004, and they wanted to give everybody the possibility of customizing their UI experience, and that's good. But to me, the fact that I won't necessarily like, oh yeah, the patch is tomorrow, we want to go raiding, so everybody log on 2 hours early and spend that time adjusting your UI because all your add-ons are going to be broken. And I remember every time, like back when I was a heavy Elv UI and Tuck UI user. For a long time because they had like bartender type stuff built in. So I would just have to download 1 or 2 instead of having 31. But they would take forever every patch. I was like, okay, I'm spending the next 3 hours getting this to look right again. I remember one time I had to main tank a raid and I didn't have time, so I had to main tank it with the original UI.
Oh, I straight up held up a raid at one point. Like I held up a raid to get my UI where it needed to be so I could heal.
Yeah, but that's as a tank, it's not as important, but it is still important to have a different UI, but just not to the level it is for a healer. So I just ate it. I just took it and tanked on with that UI, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my god, nothing makes sense. I don't have my threat units where they're supposed to be. I don't have my target right. This is just horrible." So yeah, the idea that once I get my UI set, it'll be set, and I won't have to worry about the patch breaking it is phenomenal.
I can't wait. I honestly can't wait for that. Like literally, that was one of the most exciting things I saw. It like during the release was that, and like it sounds goofy, but like I'm a sucker for good UI because I've worked in a tech industry for so long until recently, and UI was always one of my biggest pet peeves because it was always the thing that I felt got skimped on the most, but it was arguably the most important thing. And the fact that this UI hasn't really had an overhaul in 20 years basically at this point, and we're finally getting meaningful updates to it, that is super exciting. So
yeah, Liz, you anything else you want to say?
No, nothing we haven't already covered. I think this is going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for in general bringing stuff into the base UI. Sometimes people are critical of that, but I think it's really good to bring stuff into the base UI because then it doesn't necessarily, like I said, it doesn't break when the patch comes out because it's in the base UI, so they have to fix it. Blizzard has to make this work before they can release the patch. I don't have to do it.
Well, one interesting thing potentially is that this removes a barrier to entry. Like, a lot of people are kind of afraid of healing. I know there's a whole kind of swath of players who think healing is really hard. I am on the opposite side of that, obviously. But one of the things that makes healing more difficult is you need a user interface that's really designed for healing, that's really designed to make it easy to see everyone's health bars, to see everyone's buffs and debuffs and all of that. And if you don't have that, healing can be really hard if you don't have the right UI for it. But if that UI is just built in or very easy to customize with tools that are in the base game, maybe that makes this whole style of play, maybe that just becomes suddenly more accessible to more players.
And Red's pointing out in chat, and I'll bring it up here, like 9.2.5 is adding the mouse over stuff to the default UI. So I don't personally heal with mouse over stuff, but I know a lot of people do. And so that's also a good thing, because I know that is, like you said, it's a barrier for entry, right? And that's for some people a barrier to healing. So yeah, now if that's part of the default UI, like that's even better. Like we are just getting nothing but like rapid improvement. And I'm sorry. I'm very excited about this.
Okay. At this point, we're going to move on to another thing that's not a major issue, but it is certainly cool, and I'm glad that they're doing it. Tier sets are not going away.
I'm okay with this
in Dragonflight. We're going to keep getting them. There's already we already have concept art, and Blizzard straight up put the concept art on their Twitter. They're like, yeah, look at this. These are the tier sets in the next expansion. So we know we're going to get at least one tier set up front for the first raid, and we'll probably get more. I don't know if I can take credit for this. I noticed this, but I'm sure other people did too, and I think maybe someone mentioned it to me. I don't remember, but one of the cool things is that the sets all sort of look like one of the 4 elemental Drake leaders.
Yes.
That we're seeing in the new expansion. We've seen custom art for them. I mean, concept art. So it's possible that this armor is related to those 4 Drakes that are themselves important in these Drake factions that we're going to be dealing with, which I like. Also because, for one, they're really pretty Drakes. They have cool effects going on. 2, I like it when armor has a theme like that. One of my favorite armor sets, I love the Cataclysm Dragon Soul armors. I think they look really good, especially the Warrior set, which straight up looks like Deathwing. It's a really cool, very dragony set. And so I'm down for these dragony sets. They haven't actually told us which sets are which classes. Some things are pretty easy, like the big plate looking armor one that's got like lots of runes on it and a big kind of hooded helmet. That screams Paladin.
I was going to say the shoulders that have lightning coming from them. If that isn't the shaman set, I will eat my shoe.
Yeah, I think that one's a pretty good one. But for me, one of the most entertaining things of all day was watching Liz and Corey deconstruct this. I put that into the article I wrote because it was just so good for me. Was watching Liz and Corey deconstruct. Now that looks more like it's this. And Liz had a really good point about the horns on one of the set of armors looking very Demon Hunter-y.
They're Demon Hunter horns. They're a distinct type of horns, different from dragon horns. Totally different.
Yeah, and I loved this. This was great for me. I don't have a lot of opinions on these things yet because I don't like the Evokers. The Evokers are going to have a class set, obviously. I don't know anything about the Evoker other than that they exist and they evoke dragon stuff. So I don't know their aesthetic well enough to say this couldn't be them. You know what I mean? Like anything in a set of armor that's already dragon themed, any of these sets could be Evoker sets as far as I can tell. They're all dragony. But
they're going to be a male set. They're going to be a male class. We know that much.
Yeah, we do know that.
So, well, it looks like chainmail. None of these.
Yeah, which is good.
But none of these look like chainmail or plate or leather or cloth.
Male armor always looks weird. Anyway, it very rarely looks like anything actually male. But yeah, I think the suits are really cool. The set that people are pegging as the Warrior set, quite frankly, is one of the better looking ones.
Yours might be an Infernal.
It's a living. But seriously, I think these are some really pretty sets. I am looking forward to it. I want to know like how tier sets are going to work. Like, are we going to get tier bonuses? Will every set have them? One of the things that's looked interesting to me about how tier sets seem to be going in design terms is the idea of having like a 2-piece and a 4-piece bonus, but more pieces, so you can keep your set bonus while switching gear in and out.
We already have
is something I liked. Yeah, and I like that.
Yeah.
And I want to see that continue. But we've had that since Sunwell. That's been something that they've done from time to time since Sunwell. I really like seeing it, the most recent tier set having that.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to call this out. Mithric in chat spelled tier sets ? And it's spelled tier TYR. That's good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, maybe we will actually do a tier hold raid at some point and you'll have the tier hold tier set. I don't know, man.
I bet you we will. I bet you we're going to get into tier hold at some point because we're going to have to fix the machine and power up the Dragonflights.
Maybe. We will find out. But at any rate, yeah, tier sets are not going away. They're going to be out. We've already got art for them. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. I think everybody here basically has felt like it's good to give tier sets back as opposed to having it be like yet another borrowed power system. I think that's generally the way we all feel? Or, you guys can speak for yourselves.
Well, I mean, tier sets kind of by their nature are a borrowed power system because you get them and then next raid, maybe you'll switch them out for something, and maybe next raid you switch them out for something else, and next expansion you're definitely going to switch them out for something. But like the nature of our gear is to be like a come and gone system. Like that's just kind of natural progression to have this come and gone system where you get armor, but you upgrade armor and kind of getting new drops, getting new exciting gear. That's a big part of the cycle of gameplay here. So it feels kind of natural to say, okay, I have a better piece of armor now. I'm gonna toss this away, put on the new stuff because you're excited about getting the new stuff. And with most birds power systems, it's like we just hit a point in the expansion and they're like, okay, your power is gone. Wait until the next expansion and you can start earning power from scratch again. That feels bad, but this feels okay. I mean, it feels kind of natural, but it also depends on how they do tier bonus. Like certainly the tier sets now have really, really powerful bonuses, which feels really rewarding when you get them and you equip them for the first time and you start learning to use them to their best advantage. But I'm not sure it's going to feel great when I have to take off a piece and drop this bonus for the first time, or if they just kill bonuses at the end of the expansion. So
weren't you the one that mentioned that, one of the things that you've got with the, I can never remember the name of it, the CC thing, the thing that allows players to get tier, even if they're not raiding.
The Creation Catalyst.
Catalyst. I can never remember that name. But they've got that in the game right now, so because of that, players who are not going to be raiding can get tier sets and can get the tier bonuses, which means that it races a bit of a penalty to raiding, really. Those tier sets are very powerful. They change gameplay. And as a result, if you don't have them, you're often less capable of doing the raid in the first place. So it's another move to erase, make things more accessible, erase a barrier.
And it's one of those things, we talk about things that get brought over between expansions that maybe are good ideas or bad ideas. I could be perfectly content if we never see a mission table ever again. However, if they want to bring the Creation Catalyst throughout all the rest of the expansions that involve tier sets, yes, please. Like, give something like that. I think it's a really good idea. I think having those fail safes in place are important. And I actually I like tier sets. I've always liked tier sets. I like the idea of building that borrowed power system that doesn't feel like a grind necessarily because it's from stuff I'm doing anyway. But
plus, I think Liz's point, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And I think Liz's point is really valid too. That concept of this is something, it is borrowed power, but it's borrowed power that I know I'm going to get rid of this expansion.
Yep, exactly.
I will be trading this off for a new borrowed power as soon as we get to the next raid tier. Yeah. So there's that.
Like, think of it in the terms of Diablo, where the entire point of playing Diablo is that's like the whole point. You're going and you're killing things, you're getting loot, and you're equipping your new loot, and you're going and killing things, you get new loot. And it's like that's the little dopamine hit in your brain that makes Diablo so fun. You're killing a bunch of stuff, you're smashing a bunch of stuff, and you get to pick up all of this cool shiny stuff. And that's the fun part. Going in, smashing things, getting loot. So I mean, that's what gear is like. I mean, you aren't keeping it around forever as a keepsake. It's like, oh, this is the best piece of gear I have right now. I'm going to put it on and wear it. And then when I find something better, I'm going to get rid of this and put that on.
Yeah. But at this point, I feel like we've delayed it as long as I could. Here comes the talent argument part 2, electric talent boogaloo. I don't know if you guys remember, a couple podcasts ago, we talked about talent systems. And Liz and Joe were on diametrically opposed sides of the discussion, while I was kind of like doing that waffly, I see both your points thing. Although ultimately I sort of came down on Joe's side more or less. But Liz has been vindicated because talent systems are getting a major revamp in this expansion. We've been promised an end to borrowed power. We're not doing a borrowed power system this time. So none of that. I have to go leave all my power behind and step forward naked into the new system. Although you will have to do that because you're going to have to leave your Shadowland stuff behind. But at least you won't be getting anything like that in the future, because now there's going to be the major talent revamp. However, it isn't just bringing back the original talent trees from before Mists of Pandaria. And we had a big argument in staff chat about which expansion it was. We have confirmed it was Mists of Pandaria. Don't tell us it was
Really?
Cataclysm. It wasn't.
It
It was
really
Mists of Pandaria.
feels like it was Cataclysm, though. I mean,
But
it does. I don't know why.
I remember very strongly my talent spec at the end of Cataclysm, because Joe will remember it, because it was when I was literally a pinball on the back of Deathwing, jumping in and out of Bloods and doing like, thunderclapping on them and getting them all to follow me around while everybody else was focusing on eye stalks and tentacles and so forth. Man, that was a weird fight. But anyway, talent system, the way it's going to work. Do either of you want to talk about it instead of me? Because I have talked a lot. So if either of you want to go over this, tell me now.
I'll let Liz have her moment because she's excited about this, or at least more than I am.
Well, I mean, the thing that I have wanted from a talent system is the ability to make meaningful choices and to decide, which direction my character is going, and to change up, my play style based on my talent, which I do very little of. And the part of this could just be my class. I mean, I don't tweak things very much. I don't have to, because I pick my talents and I'm done. I'm done for the whole expansion. And I just like the idea of being able to make choices. And maybe the choices I make prevent me from doing other things. Like, these are meaningful choices. Like, I can't just do everything like we had with artifacts. You could eventually just fill out every point on your artifact. But with these trees, you're choosing to go this way or that way. And there are going to be 2 trees. You have kind of a general class tree, and then you have a tree for your specialization. So you can swap specs like you do now. And I mean, it's a pretty classic looking talent tree where you advance through it and you pick paths. And it sounds really good to me. There's a lot we don't know, but this idea that, okay, it's preserved something that's really good from the current system, which is that once you pick a spec, you have that spec identity. You don't have to level a bunch to get into all of that spec stuff. You pick your spec and you have that spec identity, and you've unlocked this like specialization talent tree. But I like the idea that this will let us kind of pick our way down these paths and customize how we play. And in an interview today, I think it was Ian Hazakostas, said something about, well, are you a Retribution Protection Paladin or are you a Retribution Holy Paladin? Like, which one do you go towards? And I'm like, this is exactly what I've been trying to say all this time. This is what I want. This is exactly what I want. I want to be able to choose, like, which way do I lean? Do I lean a little more towards stronger healing? Do I lean a little more towards stronger defense? Do I lean a little more towards punching people in the face? And it sounds like I will get to make those choices, which is something I can't do now. I'm a holy paladin. I pick my talents the first day of the expansion, and then I never change them again. And so, yeah, there's a lot we don't know. I want to know more, but I am really excited. This sounds like a system that was specifically made for me and my desire to go back to like Burning Crusade.
Okay, now, Joe?
I'm not here for it. Not in the current state from what we've seen. And Liz is right, and we don't have enough data, but what we do have is throwing enough red flags for me that I'm not here for it. We know that you're going to get a point per level up. So every level up you have, you're going to get a point. We don't know how many points per talent spec or bubble you're going to have. I personally don't like the idea of having a split talent tree where you have your general one and your class specific one, and you have to choose where you spend those points between those 2 trees. So you have okay.
I thought you had points in each tree, and they're never the 2 shall meet. No?
Nope. According to gain talent points with each level up and spend them in 2 distinct talent trees. Class talent trees feature utility skills for your class, while specialization trees boost your offensive or healing powers.
So that doesn't actually tell us.
But from what I've seen,
either of you are right. Yeah.
But what I'm reading from interviews and other things, it seems like that's where it's at right now. I also think that the layout of it is very stylized and not necessarily easy to understand at first blush. I know that this is a work in progress and that it's going to get a lot of work, and I'm glad for that, but I don't know. We need more information. But right now, I don't like what I'm seeing. I think this is getting too close to the OG. I would like something a little more in between OG and current. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong, and everybody is allowed to feel the way that they want to about it, but that's where I'm at right now. I want more information. I want to see what's actually going to happen with this.
Until I hear whether or not Titan's Grip is going to be around, that's my thing. I'll be upfront. For me, World of Warcraft is the tale of warriors and other lesser classes. It has always been so. I care about warriors. So once I see some warrior talent trees, then I will have an opinion. I play other classes. I've got paladins and death knights and shaman that I play. I got a hunter, but I love warriors. So for me, that up right now, there was some really good stuff in the classical talent system for warriors. There was also a lot of cruft, and I need to know, first off, do I have to pick between the general talent system? Because this actually says, looking at the actual UI for this, you see Druid points available 0, Restoration points available 0. That implies that you do in fact have different points, that you don't draw from a single pool of points.
Maybe.
That's just what that implies. I'm not saying that's what it is, because as you've both pointed out, we have no idea. We don't know how this system is going to work.
We
just have the bare bones of it.
We need more information. Yeah. And like, I'm not gonna sit here and poo-poo on it. I'm not gonna sit here and say that, oh, this is the worst thing ever. No, again, I've come around on the idea that I understand not every class is in a position like I am with what I do, and I understand that. But I'm nervous about this particular change. I want more information.
It's also a really big change. This is very different from the current talent engine. This is like Cataclysm. No, I want to say Cataclysm.
Mists.
It wasn't Cataclysm. It's like Mists when they changed from the trees to the current system. And that was a big change. That was a big freak you out change because your class was just so different after that.
I'm starting to think that, Liz, you're from the Berenstein dimension and we're from the Berenstain dimension.
Well, okay. See, here's what happened to me and is stuck in my brain forever is Cataclysm happened and they changed classes so dramatically that I left the game for like 2 years and didn't play.
Yeah.
And so when I came back, it was Mist with the new talent tree system. And that just seemed that's blurred together in my head. I keep thinking Cataclysm, but yes, talents changed. But that was a big change.
Oh yeah, it was a really, I remember being like, what do I do now? And we used to Joe has pointed this out. He's pointed it out as a negative, but nevertheless, we used to write copious talent guides. Yes. My introduction into this entire thing about talking about and writing about World of Warcraft was, I remember they did an open call for writers to, and one of the things I wrote was a guide.
Same.
Guides were the things that we wrote. Guides were the reasons people came to the sites. They wanted to be told what talents to pick. I don't want the game to turn into that again.
But I'm also worried about bloat talents as well. Like I'm worried about with all those talent choices, how are you going to make each and every one of them meaningful? And how do you do that without taking something out of the class?
Let's be upfront though. This is something I've been thinking about since I looked at this talent tree. It's not a coincidence that Diablo 4's talent system is in design right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that Diablo 2 Resurrected just came back and is currently being iterated on. They are thinking about Diablo-style talents again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is obviously influenced by that.
Oh, 100%.
If you go look at the Diablo 4 talents previews we've seen and look at what we've got here. This is another example of these two teams cross-pollinating off of each other.
Which I think is great.
I would like to toss out there, what do y'all think about the talent system in Horizon Forbidden West?
It is not my favorite part of the game.
Oh. See, I like it a lot.
So
never mind.
I was going to say, I'm on Team Matt with this one. It's not my favorite part of the game.
But, it's certainly... Okay. But I will say this for Horizon, both Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, it is a talent system that is designed very specifically for letting you choose how your Aloy will work. And it works well because you just have one Aloy. There are not... there are 30... Oh my god, 2 more are coming. We're going to have 38 possible. Do you see where I'm going with this? The Horizon Forbidden West, you just have to do that one thing. Everybody has the same talents. Everyone playing the game has the same talents because it's just you're playing Aloy, not you're playing you're one of 38 possible permutations of talents. There's a big difference. I think what works for Horizon Forbidden West, even if it is not my favorite part of it, is not necessarily what's going to work for World of Warcraft. This is actually an incredibly complex thing they are doing.
Oh, yeah.
So I am definitely looking forward to more information. I definitely want, like, if this thing manages to be to the point where it even feels like there's 80% viability in talents, like if 80% of the talents feel like they provide meaningful choice, that's a huge victory. That is almost unheard of.
I agree, but I don't know how you get to that point with such a large tree.
We'll have to see what they do.
Yeah.
I don't know that, for that matter, the idea that this thing will launch and be perfect is let's be charitable. It's optimistic. It is optimistic.
Even I who like this system think that is wildly optimistic.
Yeah, that is in an optimistic viewpoint. This will have flaws. It will have problems, but so does the modern system. Certainly there are problems with it because a lot of players don't like it. There is a reason they're doing this, and it's not just rose-colored glasses towards Classic. A lot of players want this, and you have to look at why they want it. What are they trying to get? Will this out of the gate work for everybody? Nope.
Let me jump in with something. I was interviewing a couple people from the Classic team today, and we were talking a little about how do you recapture of like vanilla or the feeling of Wrath, because that's gone. We're way out of those days. And they said, you may not be able to replicate it because, we're all years older. You can't turn back time and go back and perfectly replicate the experience, but you can give an authentic experience, something that feels appropriate or right, like the game should. And part of that is like looking at player feedback and see players saying something like, "Oh, I like these talent trees." And thinking about why did they like the talent trees? Why is it this system? And what can we put in to give that same feeling of satisfaction? And I mean, obviously we weren't talking about this, but I feel like that's relevant. It's like, I look back at talent trees and think, oh, I really miss talent trees. But what I'm thinking is that, okay, the current talent system, I pick my talents and I'm done. That's it. I set them once and then I forget them. And there's no choice, there's no hybridization, there's not really any good options for me. I don't feel like I have a choice. And when I had a talent tree, I felt like I could pick and mix and match and go in different directions. And that's what I like. I like a system that gives me more choice and options to hybridize and play differently.
I want to let Joe come back in because I know he has a point.
Yeah.
We are over the line here, so we're going to have to...
Oh.
This will be Joe's last thing. Then we will very quickly recap one more news story, and then we're going to be done. Go ahead, Joe.
My counter argument is the time for hybridization is gone because we have so many classes and there's no more, like, you don't have to worry about filling spec class roles anymore. As a matter of fact, we're getting another class added to the game. We have so many classes, so many specs. We have 36, soon to be 38 specs available in game. That's a lot. You don't need to have hybridization anymore. Not like the way that it used to be in vanilla, where you had not that many, and like one side didn't have shaman and the other side didn't have paladins, and so everything was completely different. I get what you're saying, but I think the time for hybridization is gone. So that's just my opinion.
We do need to move on. I know that you have another point, Liz. I'm sorry. I want to let you say it, but then we'll be here for another 20 minutes. But I'm going to let you say the one thing. Go. Come on, go.
I just think it's about playing the way I want to play, which may or may not be the way every paladin plays, which may or may not be the way every shaman plays, but like making my choices and going with them. And it just doesn't feel like the current system caters to that very well.
Well, hopefully the new system will, because that's what we're getting, whether or not it does. So I'm going to hope they pull this off. But now we have one bit of non-Dragonflight related news we kind of have to cover, and then unfortunately we're out of time. We have an announcement that Wrath Classic is coming. It's coming in 2022. This year, Wrath Classic will be out. That's basically all we know. But we do know one more thing. Wrath Classic will not have Dungeon Finder. That's not going to be incorporated. It's not coming at any point in Wrath Classic. It's not happening. And this goes back to the interview that Liz just did, because that's the concept of the authentic experience.
Yeah.
The Classic community, the people who play WoW Classic and who want Wrath Classic so they have more content, don't want Dungeon Finder. That doesn't how they play the game. So that's why I wanted to make sure we got to this. Liz, you did that interview that you're talking about. Did you talk about why they're not doing Dungeon Finder?
I mean, they're saying it's community feedback. They talk to the community, and the community doesn't want Dungeon Finder. They feel like the authentic, classic, authentic old school experience is going out and finding groups and going out and walking to those dungeons and experiencing the world in this different way. And the idea is if you want to play with Dungeon Finder, if you want to do all that, okay, you have retail. You can go do that. But the classic experience is different, and the classic experience doesn't include Dungeon Finder, even though Dungeon Finder was in the Lich King original.
Okay, and that's pretty much what you were talking about before. So I think that's an interesting decision. They've definitely moved away from their WoW Classic as stock recreation of original and into this idea of a curated experience that tries for a feeling. The Seasons of Mastery is another example. So I'm definitely interested in seeing that. However, we are now like 7 minutes over, and we started early, so it's more like 12 minutes over, and unfortunately we are just plain old out of time, which means we can't really talk about the Sojourn announcement from last week, or the fact that both Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 had releases last week. Both things that I would have liked to talk about in a normal day, but this happened, and quite frankly I almost wish I'd done the entire episode about the talent change, because I know both of you could talk about that forever, but we do have to get this thing cut short. Joe, if you don't mind.
Sure. Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means this podcast site and community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to the podcast, a better chance at having your question answered on our podcast or the queue, and an ads-free site experience.
Thank you very much, Joe. We didn't do questions this week. I hope you guys can forgive us for that. Pretty obviously, we had a lot to talk about. But we do love getting questions from you all, and next week we're probably going to have a ton of stuff you can ask us. If you have a question for the show, please send it to podcast@blizzardwatch.com with the subject line podcast of Blizzard Watch, if you don't mind, so we know it's for this show. That's email. If you'd rather use our Discord, we've got the patron Q and podcast questions channel for our patrons. You can put a question in there, and you get first serve for the queue and for the podcasts. Or if you're not a patron but you still want to ask a question, we absolutely love that. There's the Q and podcast questions channel. You can use that channel, and you can ask questions for this show or any of our other podcasts, including Lore Watch, which I'm pretty sure this Sunday we were probably going to do something else. But I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be Dragonflight related.
100%,
Joe is the one Joe is the person who makes that decision. But I have a feeling we've got a lot to talk about there. There's tons of stuff to talk about. Thank you all for being here with us. Thank you to Joe and Liz, especially this week, because I wanted that talent discussion. That is something that I think I really enjoy when the two of them discuss it, because they have such different viewpoints.
I just wish I wasn't sick. I would have gotten more into it.
Well, next week, week after, we can do this. We can have a showdown.
But thank you guys for being here with us, and we'll be back next week.